In January of last year, there were a couple fires in Southern California. The first biggest one was in Pacific Palisades. My brother's house over there actually burned down. And then later that evening, I was looking into the mountains and I saw like a tiny little spark. And I was looking at like the news and they're saying there's another fire starting in Altadena. Didn't think too much of it, but then half the city kind of burned down. And that the timing of all that was right when we finally got permits approved and whatnot, and we were ready to go.
Welcome back to the Dental Practice Launch podcast. I am your host, Shane Simmons, and this is an episode, it's the first episode that we're releasing in 2026, so Happy New Year to everybody listening to this, and I'm pretty stoked because we've got somebody on who has recently opened his practice. Many of you listening or watching this may know him a little bit through social media because I know he has a pretty good following with documenting his journey of a startup practice, and we're going to definitely talk a little bit about that. But I have my friend Dr. Stephen Tran on with me today. Stephen, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Shane. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining. And, Stephen has, just been a busy person the last, few years here. I'm getting things ready for his brand new dental practice. And certainly we're going to dive in and talk about that. And he's seen just explosive growth. I mean, you've been one of the quickest growing practices, that we've worked with. And so I think that it's really going to be a fun thing to dive into a little bit about, kind of what you've done on your side of things to, kind of see your startup grow the way it has, but then also talk through, some of the challenges that come with, being a new practice owner as well. So first, maybe let's just start and maybe give us a little bit of background about, when your practice opened, where you're at, and then kind of what motivated you to, open your own practice.
Yeah, so I think roughly 2 years ago, I decided that I kind of wanted to do the startup journey. That process took a lot longer than I would have hoped. I think it took a year and some change. We had a lot of delays due to like permitting issues and other stuff. And we opened doors, I think, April 14th of 2025. So roughly 9 months now. And yeah, just like you said, we've been growing pretty quick. Feeling very blessed to serve this particular community with all that's happened and whatnot.
Yeah, maybe let's start there because, in the midst of you, opening this practice and there's all the red tape and, things that go into getting, like you mentioned, permitting, there was quite a big event that kind of happened in the area. If you want to maybe talk a little bit about that and right around when that was in conjunction with when your opening timeline.
Yeah, so super crazy how it all happened. I'm in Los Angeles, California, for anyone that doesn't know. Roughly a year ago now, in January of last year, there were a couple fires in Southern California. The first biggest one was in Pacific Palisades. My brother's house over there actually burned down. And then later that evening, I live in a city called Pasadena, which is right next to where I'm building my office. I was looking into the mountains and I saw like a tiny little spark, and I was looking at like the news and they're saying there's another fire starting in Altadena. Didn't think too much of it, but then half the city kind of burned down. And that the timing of all that was right when we finally got permits approved and whatnot, and we were ready to go. So that kind of just delayed things 1 or 2 more months. But luckily our building made it. Our community definitely got affected. So of course there's the con of like less people in your immediate vicinity overall, but I feel like my team and the community was able to make a positive out of it, kind of got behind that mission of serving the community and whatnot, so that we're pretty good at just making positives out of negatives, and I feel like this was one of those times.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine, just like what that was like from, just a human level, right? Of like you live, in this community or, near this community, And, it's like, yes, you finally have that excitement, right? Of like, okay, things are going to be moving forward. Then all of a sudden it's like, a screeching halt because you have no idea, whether or not, the building's going to be there, but obviously all the people affected and, their homes and whatnot. Was it, imagine just like mixed emotions for you? I mean, how were you able to handle that, a tragic event in your own community while also like having this new business that's on the verge of opening? That had to be tough.
Yeah, most definitely. And that was the initial reaction for sure. I think that's the human reaction. Um, but I think also just waking up feeling grateful every day. There's other people that truly got affected where their houses burned down, they got relocated, and they don't have a place to stay. So um, I got over my self suffering pretty quick by just kind of backing up and looking at the overall situation of it all. Um, that perspective, I'd say, helped a lot. Um, and just seeing the community, this community in particular, everyone's very like close knit, and like just the regrowth of everything, that helped a lot too.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. And you I think it was awesome just with your mission behind it too, of like trying to be able to say, hey, we serve this community in whatever ways that that we can during this time and into the future. And certainly that was a nice, I think, spin on it too, that just kind of allowed you to be able to do that and use your skill set as well. So well, let's go back and before kind of all of this happened in your opening, and I know we're excited to hear about what that's been like, but what was it for you that kind of led you to be like, I want to go into practice ownership? Was it always something you knew you wanted to do, or had you worked at associateship and just kind of it hit you one day that, hey, this is what I want to do? How did that kind of origin story start?
Yeah, so definitely I didn't grow up knowing I wanted to become a dentist. I kind of just accidentally volunteered one day in college and fell in love with that aspect. Went through dental school, became a dentist. Had the rough struggle years that all new grad dentists go through, where it's like you're trying to find yourself again and kind of find a place in the industry, I'd say. Um, and then eventually I got to an associateship where like I was definitely learning, developing my skills and whatnot. Um, but this was around the time I think Alex Hormozy was making videos as well. So I I think I learned that I'm just really enamored, I'd say, by the business aspect of it, and just always having that feeling like, oh, I think this system would work, and these other things, non-clinical, could be optimized here and there. And I knew that I'd never be able to scratch that itch without having my own business. So I I think, to go on like a tangent, I think I grew up playing a lot of games as well. So I'm like kind of like, I like game theory and I like figuring things out. And I learned that business is really just all one big game. And of course, you're serving people along the way and you're doing things for the right reason. But for me personally, it it proves something to myself where I'm able to kind of test these things out.
It's You're right. Like business is one big game. It's a good way to put it, because it's not like a skill that you can just like master. It's like certainly you get better at it as you go, but it's like always something is going to be changing or adjusting that you have to pivot to the market shift, whatever it may be. So it is very entertaining in that aspect. And it sounds like, yeah, just you were wired with that entrepreneurial mind. And so you knew practice ownership was kind of the way to, scratch that itch and be able to challenge yourself in those ways. And, so you open the practice, because we talked about, April of 2025. So let's start there. And, there's a lot of people listening to this right now who are in that stage of their life where they know practice ownership is something that they're wanting to explore, but just haven't really taken that leap yet. I think, there's a lot of uncertainty around it, but for you, what was it that kind of got you prepared? Like, what was that first month of opening like? And were you doing things, marketing in the community, getting the word out, whatever it may be, prior to opening. Yeah, I'd just love to hear maybe up to that first month and in that first month what it was like in the office.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I could speak for pretty much anyone that's in a startup. Really, in the first month, there's not too much time to really think about stuff. You're kind of just like, you have this mental checklist of things that have to be done just for the office to be functioning. Like even the smallest things, like being able to take payment, making sure your phones are working, text, making sure all the operatories work and whatnot. So that's something that I feel all of us go through. I guess something that might be slightly different about my situation is that I did have an office manager that I hired before even opening. So she was kind of, whenever she wasn't doing some task for me, she would be out kind of marketing around the community, ground marketing for the most part. In regards to like how much efficacy there was in ground marketing, that could be, I guess, debated, but it's still something. It's We're still putting in that effort. If I were to do everything all over again, I'd really just dive deep into like meta ads 2 weeks before opening. But I do also realize that's kind of unique to my situation, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to start there because your first month, was I think we would all say a solid first month. You obviously are someone's always got that high expectation for yourself. But if you don't mind, maybe just sharing a little bit about how many patients you all saw in that first month, and kind of what was your evaluation of month one before that second month started. Getting scheduled out.
Yeah, so the answer to that question is a little bit, I got to beat around the bush a little bit, because if you ask me that now, like the two main obvious KPIs I'm looking at is new patients per month and collections per month. But truthfully, in the beginning, I wasn't paying too much attention to that. I was really just making sure our systems were proper. I was making sure like the patient experience of walking through the office and all the little checkpoints and handoffs were done properly. Really diving deep into that before trying to expand or really looking at my numbers. And truthfully, 9 months in, I'm kind of still at that mode where I could tell you to the exact dollar how much we've done this month so far. But again, that's not necessarily the focus. It's more so just thinking long term and making sure we're building the right systems, building the right culture might even be more important than the right systems. And yeah.
I think that's a good point, because what you're talking about here is, and even 9 months into it, which again is still, practice isn't even a year old yet, so it's still very much a startup. But it's setting that foundation correct, right? It's like you talked about making sure the handoffs are right, the patient experience, the team culture, all of these things that I think sometimes we can get too enthralled with the numbers too early on. I mean, certainly they're important, but when you just make it all about the numbers, sometimes you can bypass some of maybe those teaching opportunities or areas where you can optimize. Maybe if you don't mind sharing, just like, what have been a couple of things that you feel like has really helped with your team buy-in and setting that team culture, right, so that way you can build on this? Because certainly, if you're doing these things now and thinking about this, now you're setting a standard, right, with the team that you currently have, but you're also setting a standard for the type of future team members that you may hire. So I guess what's that been like with the team, and if there's been any example or something you thought of that, seen from that like team experience?
Yeah. So I think the single most important thing is that team culture is exactly that. It relies on more than one person. So even if I were to build another office with a completely new team right now, I'd try to find at least that one person, ideally your office manager or whoever that might be, maybe your back office lead, that kind of buys into whatever culture or vision you're setting for the office. All my team members know that we're here to serve our community to the highest quality, to the highest degree. And that might not look like, though we do strive to do the best clinical dentistry, more so the product, quote unquote, that we provide is really just our service, making patients feel welcomed, that transparency when we're explaining stuff. So, back to my initial point, having that one person that you could really trust and really shares that vision allows you to set that culture, and then I don't want to say enforce that culture, but you're able to now hold that standard for everyone else. And then as you're hiring, um, like you could argue finding the proper talent, finding the proper people, um, is probably the single biggest, I'd say, limiting factor in the growth of any business, really. It's usually almost always talent. And when you have that culture established, you're able to kind of hire in a different way. You're not hiring out of necessity. You're kind of, I feel like I'm constantly hiring, even if we're not ready for that position. If we find the right person that fits that culture, I'll make it happen by upping our marketing spend or expanding our operatories. So I think having that is really what just propelled our growth, because now I have a team of, I think, 8 people, where I know if I'm not in the office, that same culture, if not even more so, is upheld truly.
Yeah. And one of the things, for all of you, listening out there is, Stephen, again, I mean, he's thinking, very much to like a business owner as well here, right? Because one of the things that you said that I think maybe is some of the best advice people could take is, if you find that right person, for the team, whether it's culture fit or they just fit in perfectly, whatever it may be, it's like, even if you're not necessarily hiring, it's, it's important if you can to go ahead and get that person, right? And whatever you have to do around that, because oftentimes, I mean, what do we do, right? It's too often we wait until somebody quits or, we're in a pinch, and then we try to hire really quickly, and then we may settle for somebody who isn't the good culture fit, and you bring that person in and maybe they, cause some issues on the team, or they're in there for a few days and then they quit, and you got to do it all over again. And it goes back to the old phrase, it's like hire slow, fire fast. And I think what you're saying there is so key. And just in my own experience too, as a business owner, it's like, if you find that person, and even if you're not hiring at the moment, like, find a way, right? Find a way.
Yeah. And like, to expand on this point, one thing I'm learning now that I'm 9 months in is that, at least for my office and our growth, I can't speak for everyone, but once you find that potential person for whatever position it is, you truly just pour into them. You have to be the one that's willing to give first, because especially in any job market, a lot of people are so jaded where they feel like they give so much to an office or whatever company, and they feel like they might not be reciprocated. So one thing I'm learning about myself that's kind of worked for me is I try to pour into whatever new team member is joining our team. And then it's not like doing it blindly where you could be taken advantage of. It's doing so and evaluating if they are trying to reciprocate it, or if they're trying to take advantage, in which case you go back to that phrase that you mentioned before, where it's hire slow, fire fast, because I don't think any of us are in the business of trying to change people, but we should show people what we're about. And if you're truly a leader that cares about others, then people see it. People see it, and people appreciate it more than most think.
100%. Yeah, I think that is an excellent point. Now, let's talk a little bit now about this, year so far, nine months in, and I do think that this is something that we should celebrate and share, with the audience. But you've done just an amazing job of growing that team, growing the practice, continuing, to optimize, work on your system. Certainly not resting on your laurels or anything like that. But can you maybe recap so far, this year? Whether it's how many patients you all have seen, or your rough new patient numbers per month now that you're 9 months in, what has that been like? Because you mentioned the number of team members you have. People are probably like, okay, like how many patients is this like startup practice seeing in, by the way, a really competitive area. So it's not like you're in the middle of nowhere and, the Midwest or something like that. This is a, very competitive market. So yeah, how many, patients are you guys seeing per month right now? And kind of what's going into growing it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I'll lay out all the metrics. I like to be pretty transparent about everything. That's what my Instagram page is about as well. And I know that other dentists, including myself, just like having specific numbers so that we can kind of not necessarily compare, but like have, something to measure against, or like a reference point.
Yeah.
But right now we very safely see 120 new patients per month. Our office only takes PPO insurances, so no Medi-Cal or HMOs. Our collections standardize out at roughly 200,000 a month now. And then as far as my team, there is myself, one associate doctor, one hygienist, 3 dental assistants, 1 office manager, and 2 other front desk girls. So maybe more than 8. I'm not too sure. I think maybe 9 or so.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I mean, that is a really, it's a great start. And having an associate now, in a practice that hadn't even been open for a year is a heck of a thing there. What went into hiring, the associate? When did that happen in this time frame? And was it always the plan for you? Was it the plan this early? Would love to hear a little about that.
Yeah, I think before we could fully have that discussion, you have to kind of, or at least I asked myself, what am I optimizing for the long term? And it's, while I love being very, very hands-on, and I do love seeing all of our patients and whatnot, I'm optimizing for really serving as many patients as we can with the highest quality that we can. And I knew early on I can't see everyone. So if I'm operating with that decision in mind, I figured we would always have to start hiring another hygienist, another associate. And a lot of people have pushback from that because they're worried that there won't be enough patients for everyone. But to me, that just gave me clarity. That just meant, okay, now I get to start focusing on my marketing while my associate handles other stuff in the office. And in addition to that, honestly, it just gives me so much fulfillment to have an associate that's learning from me. Another thing is, like, we'll talk about our reviews later, but we pretty much get a bunch of reviews every day. Most of them don't even mention me anymore. Most of them mention the other doctor or my hygienist or the rest of the team, which honestly makes me feel gives me so much more joy than seeing a review about myself. And I think I knew very early on, I didn't want to remove myself from the practice necessarily, but I didn't want to be the sole face of the practice.
It gives you, and it's so cool because it shows like you are, I feel like a true leader, because that is, in my opinion, what makes a great leader is someone who wants to see others, shine. They want to see them get as much of the credit, as possible for the hard work that they're putting in. And it brings you more joy than, just seeing a bunch of reviews that may, feed your ego that mention you specifically, right? It's like even more rewarding when you see that associate's name in the review, or your hygienist, or whatever the case is. And, Stephen, that's something that it attracts, certain people to you as well, not just patients, but the right type of team members. Because unfortunately, and this, working in, it's not just dentistry, it's just the professional world in general, a lot of organizations that aren't that way, right? Where it is a little bit more about, me, and from a management standpoint. But when you find a good, leader, CEO who really wants to invest in the team and doesn't just say it, right? Actually does invest in the team and roots for them and to see them grow. That to me is what long-term sustainability looks like. So kudos to you, man, because that is awesome. And the fact that you've hit that at this early stage of practice ownership is really, really cool. So
Thank you.
yeah. So, that is, the reviews piece. So let's hit that for a minute, because actually before the reviews, I do want to mention this. You've done all sorts. You mentioned ground marketing earlier, but Google has been a piece of your marketing as well, right? The meta ads, you referenced that earlier as well. You may have done more with that at the beginning if you would do it all over again. Can you talk a little bit about on those online platforms, what you've been doing from an advertising standpoint, and also why you feel like you've been more aggressive, and what has that result been? Because just context here, a lot of times people want to be very, very, very conservative with spending in marketing because they look at it as an expense, right? Not an investment, and then they don't have a way to measure it. You, again, coming at it from a business standpoint, have really looked at it of, okay, how much do I spend? What do I get back in return for that, and make a business decision? So can you talk a little bit about the platforms you've been investing in from an advertising standpoint, and, what has led to, you continuing to do that?
Yeah. And just for context, to what Shane was referring to, we almost have like the opposite discussions where I'm kind of emailing your team and I'm saying, I need to spend more in marketing, where to put
Which
my
is so
dollars
rare.
in.
We don't ever get that. Our team don't even know how to react to it sometimes, right?
Right. I want us to always be spending roughly 15,000. And that number is truly dependent on, and we could touch on this later, but one thing I'm always asking myself is whether we're supply constraint or demand constraint for that month, but we could touch on that later. As far as marketing goes though, I feel that everyone has their own philosophy on how marketing works. Whether it be mailers, whether it be Google ads, whether it be meta ads, and they all can work. I truly feel that you or me, if we dove into it and dedicated all our time to any modality, it truly would work. But there's trade-offs for everything. A lot of people love ground marketing, and people argue that it's cheaper because you don't have to pay per click, stuff like that. But for me personally, and I have a very personal team that was really willing to go all in, and we did table and do all that stuff, the ROI just wasn't fully worth it for us, especially because there's other things in the business you could be working on. So even though it wasn't even my time, I had my team members out like cabling and stuff, I felt their time was better used somewhere else. So that leads us to online marketing. As far as, I guess, I don't know if you want me to go into like technicalities of like how I feel about things, but like I'd say Google ads are good, and I feel everyone should be doing them for sure, but they kind of, I don't want to say get capped out at a certain point, but it gives you a good, let's say for our office, a good 20 new patients a month, 20, 30 new patients a month. So you got to kind of fill that bucket with other modalities, or else your ad spend kind of starts skyrocketing. For us, we really dove into meta ads. A lot of people, I'd say the vast majority of companies and dentists say that meta ads don't work. And I believe that's true for them. But realistically, when I see any dentist ad pop up or chiropractor or any small business, it's usually the same cookie cutter thing where it's, "Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen Tran. This is this is my office. We're located here. Come visit us." It's very me centric. Whereas our ad really focuses on the patient, focuses on pain points, kind of makes it as concise as possible while still addressing our unique market. And from the ground, I could tell you that 90% of the patients that walk through my door say, "Oh, you're the dentist on Instagram." And it's not from my personal Instagram. My personal Instagram has actually led to no patients coming in, but it's from just our small office page that has, I don't know, like 800, 900 followers. But we just run a meta ad through that page. So people have seen us on that, or have seen my face rather.
And one of the things, I love that, first off. And I'm adjunct teaching at my alma mater, Indiana University, this semester, and I'm teaching a multimedia storytelling marketing course. And one of the things that is so relevant, because we're talking about it right now, is a lot of businesses, there's always, well, first off, there's usually a hero of a story, and then the hero meets a guide, right? And the guide helps the hero through challenges, whatever, to, get to their end result or goal. That's on basic of most stories. And the issue many times that practices, chiropractors, dentists, or even just bigger, companies do is they make their company the hero, right? And when in reality, what you've done is the exact opposite, where you've made your patients, right, your audience, the hero. Summit Dental Arts, the practice, is the guide that's there to, like you said, listen to their pain points, help, walk them through that and comfort them. And I think that is something that has really made your ads much more impactful. But the other thing too is, Stephen, at least at the beginning portion there, you weren't afraid to show your personality, right? Like, I'll never forget one of the first ads that, we ran when your practice was open. And you start off with like a, "Hey, what's good, Altadena?" Like, it's like you just like about to have a conversation with somebody, right? Whereas sometimes people think, "Oh, I need to be, tie and buttoned up, and I got to put this professional kind of voice on," and that's just, it's not as authentic. Whereas you're just like a human being, right? Like somebody could talk to, feel comfortable around. You're not trying to put on an act. People are going to react more positively to that. So I don't know, have you felt like, was that hard? Because it's hard to do, to be yourself in video, right? Like, naturally, sometimes when that record button happens, you just, I know how it goes. But was that hard for you, or did it just kind of come natural? And we're going to talk about your social media page, which maybe helped with that, but...
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll talk about my social media page, which definitely helped as far as that goes. But I mean, I kind of found a workaround for it, because if you notice with any of our ads, I'm never recording live. It's almost always, I mean, it is always a voiceover, and then it's putting our clips kind of over it. So you still have that element of human interaction. And you still have a script where I could just be reading off a script very comfortably on my laptop and just voice recording that. And I could redo as many takes as I want. And then I get to choose whatever clips go over the top. So I think people have the right idea of running ads, but they don't spend that extra time just giving it a little bit more character, a little bit more, a little bit more loving. Because there's a sea of meta ads out there, and it really just takes a little bit more effort to make your ads convert. I'd say 10 times better.
Yep.
And I don't know any of the scripts off the top of my head, but again, it's just all about, it's about making the ad for the person. You're here to serve the person. That's with any business. Like, businesses are made by people for people. So I think our ad starts with, if you live near Altadena and haven't found a dentist you love, then this is for you. At Summit Dental Arts, we do everything under one place. Again, addressing pain points of, a lot of people haven't found a dentist they trust, or a lot of people are tired of getting sent to different places for different types of procedures. So I can go on and on and on about that, but that's the main gist of that
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
to the point here, and before we move on, it's also too, it's like time, right? I always talk about the compounding effect and how it truly is so powerful, and it's like now at 9 months of being open, and as you approach your first year, it's like having the consistency too of your ads out there, both some of the older ads that have performed great, but also continuously having new content and new ads. It's like over time, people have seen you even if they haven't scheduled an appointment yet. It's like, you're known at this point, right? And then that typically builds over time as well, and then leads to a lower cost to acquire a new patient the longer that you've been out there and noticed, because you've built that trust. So speaking of trust, the reviews piece, how have you done it? Everyone wants to know that. Like, Google reviews are the most asked about question I think that I get from the marketing side is, how do we build our Google reviews? What do we do? And right now, just for context, as we're recording this, the practice is at like 481 reviews, 5-star average here. What's gone into getting so many reviews not even a year in? Has it been just through asking, software? What's the secret? Everybody wants to know.
Yeah. So couple things. This goes back to what we were saying earlier. I haven't looked at the reviews today, but I bet you if you were to check like the 3 most recent ones, they probably don't mention me. They probably mention the other doctor or the team or the hygienist. So again, it just goes into like having team buy-in, kind of getting them excited about it. But as far as the quote unquote secret, I tell a lot of people, if you had ever visited our office as a new patient and left the doors, you would definitely understand, because it just has so much to do with the patient experience. The second you're calling for a new patient appointment or DMing us or whatever it may be, whatever modality, I have a team that's really, really kind, working with you, getting your insurance, working around your schedule, trying to get you in. So they already feel so much appreciation from that. Patients walk through the door. I don't like using the word trained too much, but our team together, we're trained to greet them by first name, because you can kind of see them walking in because we have like glass doors, at least as best as you can. And it's like all these small minor details of like just making the patient feel comfortable. The dental assistant brings them back, makes them feel comfortable, offers them water, cracks a couple of jokes. All of our technology is like super transparent. We have like scanners, 3D scans, a bunch of other stuff that we kind of show off to our patients. The doctor consult, I'm always reviewing with my doctor how to speak to patients. And then the treatment presentation, patients are always commenting on, oh, no one's ever explained to me this well on how my insurance works. And then say the patient starts same-day treatment, then it's just giving them a good experience there. And I spend so much time on saying this part because if you don't have this part down, no matter how much you ask for a review, it's not going to amount to anything. Truly, the patient experience is the foundation for it. But on the other side of things, there's a bunch of offices out there that give a stellar patient experience as well, that they're too shy to quote unquote bother the patients by asking for reviews. Whereas my team, like before the patient leaves the door, there's like 2 or 3 people asking them already. And I think just having that team buy-in again is kind of what has led us to be able to do that. As far as like systems, when we're walking the patient out, we're asking, we do have Swell, which is like a automated sender. Swell wants us to send it to all of our patients, but I kind of said no on that. I just kind of like to manually choose the patients because sometimes on that first visit, they haven't really gotten to experience us just yet. But realistically, it's it's not the software, it's not necessarily even the exact system. It's just having that team buy-in and focusing on the patient experience, and then just asking over and over and over again. Even on recalls, some patients have been like, "Oh, I already left one 6 months ago," and now we're even telling them, "Oh, you like if you could update your review or whatever," and patients are more than happy to.
Man, that's a key there again. And those listening to this, like, take that to heart. Is no piece of software or technology can just beat out asking, human connection and getting your team on board. And because then the patient sees, right, if they've been asked 2 or 3 times before they're about to walk out the door, they kind of know the importance of what that means to you all, right? And that's way more than what a text message can do. And I'm not saying don't have automated text messages and things. I love that. That's part of the system, right? But it's like you got to plant that seed while they're in the practice. And Stephen hit the nail on the head there. I think that that's something everybody needs to do more of, because as a marketer again, and you as a business owner, I'm sure now if you go into a business of, for example, massage therapy place that I go to regularly, I always just like to see, are they going to ask me for a review? Are they going to, and it's like you never get asked, right? But then you always get the text message. Right. So putting yourself in the shoes of the patient for a second, I think makes a big difference there. So excellent point. Well, as we're getting into the end here, I want to talk about your social media side of it, because one thing that I think you've really done that's brought a lot of value to so many people, whether you know it or not, is Stephen documented his journey basically in building this practice on Instagram. And so we'll definitely somewhere we'll put a graphic here, put links and stuff, tag that Instagram account, because I want everybody to go check that out and see some of the content there. But when did you decide to, on your personal account, kind of document this whole startup journey? What led to that, and just how'd you get started there?
Yeah, so for the year leading up to the startup being open, I actually had quite a lot of free time, believe it or not, and that's because I kind of took a year off from working. That's a story for another time, but basically stock market gains allowed me to spend more time with my family, so I took a year off from working just to focus on the startup. And I was like, I kind of need a creative outlet. So that's honestly what led to that. I'd say kind of halfway through that, or I guess once the startup did open, I did take a little break. And I was constantly asking myself, what am I even doing this for? Because truthfully, most people make content so that it leads to a funnel that leads to their business. But with my
person, you're going to start coaching or something like that.
Right. Which I have no intention on doing ever. So my followers are mostly other dentists by vast majority. So I was like, oh, this doesn't even contribute to my business. But now that my time is freeing up a little bit, I'm seeing it as a nice creative outlet. And also I do have doctors pretty much reaching out almost every day, asking for advice on whatever it may be. And I really do try to kind of get back to everyone, at least in some way, shape, or form. Just because I feel like giving back to this community, giving back really to the world, it brings me joy. And I truly believe it always comes back tenfold. So I think I'm going to start making content a little bit more now that we're kind of past that struggle phase of the startup. But
yeah, as you start maybe get some of your time back, you can dedicate more to that. And he mentioned it earlier in this episode, he's transparent about everything. But I know you'd posted on there, your first month, profit in the practice, how the struggles along the way, obviously the stuff around the build out. And was that just your mindset going into it, is like, hey, I'm going to share, everything here, whether it's good, bad, ugly. And I guess that's probably been one of the reasons that it's attracted so many other dentists to it, is because it's like, okay, this guy isn't trying to sell me something, right? It's just, he's a person like me who's going through this journey, and it gives somebody, kind of that, someone to relate to on their, level, because they're also a dentist.
Yeah. And it now that I'm reflecting on it, it's kind of nice that my personal content has nothing to do directly, it doesn't feed into the business.
Mhm.
because it allows me to just make content for the sake of quote unquote helping others, or maybe it's a creative outlet for myself, but it's a lot less stress for me. I'm just posting whatever I want to post about. I do get pretty good engagement relative to amount of followers or whatnot, but I think it's because of what you were saying, where people truly just resonate with it. Um, Especially in this day and age where a lot of content is made to sell something at the end of the day. I truly have nothing to sell, and it's really just to help people out there that were in my shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it, goes back, man, and I feel like you really just lived this where it's like, yeah, the best, and I didn't make this up. I think it was like Gary Vaynerchuk or something I saw years ago, but they said it was the best marketing strategy is just to care, right? It's like,
Yeah.
because in everything you do, if you actually care and there's not some sort of hidden agenda behind it, it's like you're gonna see success, right? Like you said, it's gonna come back tenfold. And I totally agree with that. And I think you definitely represent that, well in everything that you do. And that's why, people are attracted to you, both from team, your patients, other dentists. And so I think it's really cool what you've done. So, okay. I could talk to you all day, but as we wrap it up here, I got to ask, I end all of these conversations with like if you could give the biggest piece of advice to someone who maybe right now is considering practice ownership, let's say a startup route, right? What's maybe one of the biggest things that you would tell them as maybe a piece of advice, knowing now, what you know at this point?
Yeah, it's this is gonna sound very like big picture, but it's honestly just having an abundance mindset. I couldn't tell you the amount of dentists that have DMs me saying, "Hey doc, love your content. Because of it, I just started my own startup and we're opening doors October, whatever it may be." So just because I made that content and I saw that doctors shifting their mindset into truly believing that they could accomplish whatever they wanted to accomplish, that kind of validated the whole abundance mindset thing for me. And it truly it truly allows you to kind of just, like I said before, just accomplish whatever you set out to accomplish. I think in dentistry there's a lot of people trying to pull each other down a lot of the times, and it's we live in such an abundant society, especially in the States. So I think just having that mindset and knowing that there's resources out there to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish, and waking up every day feeling truly grateful for all that we have, um, allows you to take whatever path you want to pursue in dentistry. Whether that be like being an associate that takes a lot of CEs and developing your skills, or becoming like a CEO of a chain of different offices. There's a path for all of us, and there's a way for all of us to accomplish it, but no one's going to believe in you more than you believe in yourself. So that's kind of where it all starts.
Awesome. Very well said, man. Well, thank you so much for hopping on here, sharing, just your journey, because certainly it's been one where you've had trials and tribulations along the way, like we talked about with, the fires and everything in the community, delays, and just goes to show, to everyone listening, it's like, don't let, the obstacles that sometimes life throws at you to frustrate you or deter you, right? It's like everything that we do that's worth doing is going to have challenges along the way, and it's a matter of just keep persevering. And Steven, you're a perfect example of that, man. And I love to see what you're doing, and your community, the heart that you have as well is really inspiring. And just thank you for hopping on here. If anybody wants to reach out to you, what's maybe the best way? And like I said, we will tag your Instagram and stuff, too, if that's okay with you. But what's the best way to people to reach out if they want to, ask you a question?
Yeah, for sure. Usually Instagram DMs. I do physically block my Instagram every day, meaning like I try to only check it like 2 or 3 times a day max, because I found myself just scrolling way too much sometimes. But I do eventually reply to pretty much everyone, especially doctors asking anything about their career. Um, I know I'm still early in my career, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, but I could speak from my experience and what I've accomplished, at least thus far. And I'm more than happy to always just give my opinion or my thoughts on anything, really.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and for everybody listening. I know there's a lot of gems in this one, so definitely, go back. You may want to listen to this one again on some of the things that we were talking about earlier on, and just use this as inspiration for your own story. But again, Stephen, thank you so much for hopping on here, and congrats on all the things you're accomplishing, man.
No problem, man. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.